Have you ever been in a situation where, let's say someone walks past you and then maybe you call them back like, hey, and then they looked back and they were like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you there. Yeah, I've seen several situations like that before, and I've always wondered, like, what does it mean when someone says, sorry, I didn't see you, and I especially I wonder about it when it's in relation to being a black person in a full-on white room and someone says the same thing. Hello, welcome to this space. I'm Roguru and I've been doing some book reviews lately, and this is another one I wanted to do. And today I really wanted to do Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson. Yeah, look at that cover. It's beautiful black people on it. And I wanted to read this book because as someone who also identifies as diaspora, I was really curious to read books about the black experience in England. And to be honest, I haven't read that many. I think maybe Second Class Citizen is probably the last one I remember having read. And so when I saw this, the synopsis for this, I was like, oh, that sounds modern. It sounds so, it's characters around maybe similar ages to me, I don't know. And I was just curious. I was like, they're into arts, they're in London, they're black, and I was like, I'm interested. So that's why I really wanted to read it. And I love the cover. I loved the cover. I just loved seeing the faces on it. I also wanted to read this book because I thought, oh, it's London as a backdrop for a love story between two black characters, and I was interested in that because it's this big city as a place where many people are trying to find their place. And so yeah, let's talk about Open Water. So if you ask me what Open Water is about, I think the way I would summarize it, I would say it's meant to be a love story between a photographer and a dancer who meet at a party and start to build a relationship of some kind, and it's just how they kind of connect with each other and bond over similar experiences, having gone to private school together, well, not together, but having both gone to private school, their experience kind of in the arts as artists, and it's just as black people generally. But I think for me, I would probably mainly say that Open Water is basically about a black man just kind of finding his place and reflecting on who he is in this big city. So I would say, I guess, that Open Water is about a black man grappling with his own identity, struggling with kind of not being seen or being seen in the wrong way, and the consequences of that. It's about his fears and his dreams as well, the reality, being vulnerable and trying to kind of be close to people that we're connected to, and I guess the struggle that may come with kind of revealing so much of who we are and being fearful of doing that and fearing vulnerability, and just the whole experience. So that's intriguing to me. Okay, I say his and I say black man, and that's definitely very, 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 very I think obvious in the book to an extent, though I would love to commend the author for using second person narrative, which I think was a bold step and probably a risky one because it's not like the most common way that things are done, and so I was happy for breaking boundaries and doing what's not expected. In addition to the second person narrative, I also wondered what would be the reason behind it. I'm just curious now because because there's something about it that kind of necessitates that you as the reader experience and understand what it means for this black character to live as a black character and to see themselves and to be seen as well. And so it makes sense that you have at some point to walk or to experience the story through this black man perspective which I like. So then I wonder why be given the liberty in the first place to read the book as you, because you might not be a black man or even black at all. So that was just my curiosity. I'm just very curious about how different people read and understood the book. So if you've read the book and you're white or whatever orientation or race, I'm just curious if it was different for all of us. As well, if you're reading it and you're black, but maybe from a more American experience, and you're reading about a black British experience or diaspora experience, it'll be interesting to know how people actually took it. But for me, I didn't mind the second person narrative. I thought it made it a lot more interesting. It made me more involved and more caring about the characters. And and I think it was also his. Okay, I'm now speaking on his behalf, but not really. But I also feel that it was a way of the author kind of communicating also to the black man and saying, I see you. And that's how I also took it. So I think one of the things to really appreciate about the book is how obviously the character, the author, pays homage to not all, but several sort of black artists, films and books. And I thought that was nice because I actually took, when he would mention a black artist, I would note it down and think, I'm gonna go listen to that song or look for that song or look for that book. And I thought it was nice because also it just kind of made me think wow, we have a lot of good stuff that we don't always get to see or reminisce about. And the fact that in the book it's so important to how these two characters relate to one another. It's how they experience their love, and it's how the protagonist gets to experience or explain and express himself through songs by black people that he's heard and gone, oh, I feel that, or book or movies where he's seen a scene and a character has said something. I think he did this with Moonlight, where he basically talks about I can't remember which character, because I haven't watched the movie yet, but I have to after reading this, but how he basically uses the same language that the characters in the movie use to describe how they're feeling, and then uses that in the book to kind of repeats it to explain how he's feeling. And so you get to really this message of being seen. It's really, really frequent and really powerful and effective. And I think that's what I really liked about it best. It just made me feel like I'm reading this story and it's about these two characters who I feel I connect to, I feel I relate to. Hence, you feel seen, and I think that's a good thing. And it makes me feel happy for the characters any moment that they feel seen. And I just thought it was powerful. The best thing about this book that I think I'll always take with me is just how beautifully written it is. It reminded me of attending those poetry sessions or going to hear people spoken word events, because it has that filter, it has that rhythm to it that feels almost not musical per se, but musical too. I loved, one of the things that I'll take with me is the descriptions. I loved the descriptions. They were just so deep. They were so poetic through the repetition, the complex sentences kind of mimicking some of the anxiety that the characters might have. I loved it just had this rhythm to it in some cases that made me think of when I used to attend all these poetry sessions, and the spoken word element to it just made it feel like it's like someone's just you want to join in, you want to snap your fingers. That's what it made me want to do, and I really liked it, and it just felt like also just an all-rounded experience. It felt audio. It was like an audio experience that you can hear it, and I think I'd love to hear. I don't listen to audiobooks, but this one made me think, oh, this would be so nice to listen to as an audiobook, because I'm sure it would sound like poetry. So that was one of the things that you just can't deny, that the writing keeps you going. And for me, that was a key element in getting me through the book. So one of the, I guess the love story is an interesting part of the book, but for me it wasn't the centerpiece. I didn't really feel, and I guess this maybe is like the weaknesses for me in the book, I didn't really feel as connected to the love story. I felt, in some way, in the beginning, obviously, again, which is probably how maybe, generally the relationship graph looks like. They're very close in the beginning, or they're very, I guess, infatuated with one another, and then, because she has to go away, and they try to keep in touch, and they have, these experiences together, and it's nice. There's a certain realistic element to their relationship that I like and I value, but at the same time I don't feel like it's the reason I was enjoying the book. I think I was more interested in just the character and just their inner monologues. I think that was what I was really interested in. I felt like some of the instances where their experiences are described, or they're spending time together, some of them I found were a bit repetitive, or maybe like the changes between them, because they're progressing, like their relationship is growing, and finding more, kind of them growing to be a bit more vulnerable with each other more and more. That goes, but then I felt like the changes were a little too subtle, so it made it seem like he was being a bit repetitive, which maybe wasn't the case, but that's how I perceived it, because it felt like, the changes weren't as dramatic and as, as shouty. And I don't read a lot of romance or anything, so maybe I'm not the best to maybe comment on what a good romance is or should be. But I think for me, I just didn't really, wasn't as kind of drawn into their relationship as much. I think I was more interested in just the inner journey of the character, and that's what made the book more interesting for me, because it just felt like something I hadn't read before, and it felt like the relationship was really something to just pedal the story forward. So that's just how I took it. So that's why I wouldn't really recommend the book as a love story personally. I would recommend it more as a kind of just a beautiful narrative about, this inner journey of a character, almost like a character study in some way. And I think that's what's more appealing about it. I don't think I'd be selling or pushing the love story, and especially because I feel like, obviously, by the end of it, I feel I know the protagonist more. I know I feel the reason why I wouldn't also push the kind of love story element is because I feel like by the end I don't know enough about the kind of the woman, the dancer. I feel I know more about the man, the protagonist, the one that we are, second person narrative. That's the one I feel I know and I understand more than, how they are together, and definitely the dancer. So that kind of makes it harder to feel like I'm rooting for their relationship, or that's the thing I'm obsessed with. Yeah. So I understand why he wants to be in a relationship with her. I understand that, she presents this comfort in a place where sometimes, you can't always know what's going to happen. You may walk out of your door and, I don't know, be stabbed or whatever it is. But I understand the need for him to have that kind of comfort and that sort of familiarity with someone. And I guess also the love story plays a role of kind of making us, or the protagonist, see that, they're not being vulnerable. They need to be more vulnerable for, their connection to be more real and grounded, and for him to feel free to express his fears and what runs through his mind, because there is a lot. So I get the purpose of the relationship, but it's not the selling point for me personally. And I think one of the other interesting things was that these two characters, they're quite privileged, I guess, in some ways, because they went to private school. They're in really good schools. He's a photographer, and she's a dancer. And despite that, they're still, insecure in some way about, you know, about their blackness, not even how they see themselves, but rather how they fear how everyone else sees and perceives their blackness. So I think this kind of relationship between race and class is also present, and I think it's interesting that even, you know, even being somehow more comfortable in some way in society as a black person also doesn't always protect you from, you know, from racism and from being insecure about your own position in society or your own safety. So I thought that was quite interesting. So all in all, the reason why I love Open Water, as I've said, it's well written. I recommend it for sure. And I love it because it also got to show a different face to London. It made London romantic, which made me see it in a very different way, made me see certain things differently than maybe I was used to before. And it made me see a love story in London too, which I have never thought about before, which is crazy, but it's just not something that's so normalized, you know. You're used to seeing other people, but you just so rare to see, you know, a black story, black love story. So I appreciated that, and I love that Caleb was also able to talk about, you know, everything from just the barbershop kind of chronicles. It reminded me of the Barbershop Chronicles by Inua, and, you know, the fact that black men can go to the barbershop and feel safe there and have a space to be themselves, and just also how quickly those spaces can be ruined, and how quickly and how fragile they also are to, you know, the threats that black people face. But yeah, I definitely think that this one, Open Water, has made me want to read more literature by black people and by kind of the new upcoming black authors writing about their black and diaspora experiences. And I look forward to that, and I look forward to whatever else he writes. And I hope that they do. I don't know if there's an audiobook yet, but yeah, this might be one that I actually listen to. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope that this was good. Let me know if you've read the book and what do you think of the second person narrative. And anyway, thank you, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.